Detective.
Ancient sands, heed my command.
You know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning?
And reclaim these relics of
I think I'm kinda gay.
Morphin' time!
Kinda gay.
The same thing that happens to everything else.
If the apocalypse comes, beat me. Beat me. Beat me. Beat me. Beat me.
Welcome to Real Hot Nerd Shit, a pop culture podcast where real hot nerds talk about real nerd shit. I'm your host, Ryan.
And I'm your co-host, Shauna.
And on this episode of Real Hot Nerd Shit, I will slow down and not speak so quickly. On this episode, we're talking under the theme of witches, and we will be unpacking the first 3 episodes of Agatha All Along. And to do that, we have our resident Wanda Maximoff expert, Uxmal Iñiguez Shafranek. Everybody welcome Uxie back. Yay. I should get like a little soundbite for that. Perfect. Like whatever the soundbite is from, I don't know, some corny like video game or something. We'll integrate it so it sounds
workshop
appropriate. Yeah, we'll workshop it. Just like our theme song, which we played for the second time today. Hope you liked it. So before we jump into this week's theme, we figured we would just catch up a little bit. Part of Real Hot Nerd Shit is also that we're real hot smart nerds, and we like to talk about the things that are happening in the world. Starting with the most important one that Shauna wanted to discuss. Do you wanna get us going, Shauna?
Sure. Okay, so I'm very online, and so I've been looking at the Chapel Roan controversy in
Yes.
Twitter Spaces, and it's so ridiculous. This well, she didn't endorse Vice President Harris strongly enough, and therefore, she
she's
said
MAGA
both
adjacent.
sides are bad.
Yeah.
And did you know that one side is actually much worse than the other side? And I'm like, it's so ridiculous.
Who are you yelling at, children? Because it's got to be children. No.
It really is. And it's so frustrating to me that she's someone who's been so vocal on so many different issues, not the least of which, of course, being the genocide in Palestine that's happening, and being such a vocal advocate. And I would not be surprised if that was the main reason why she's getting such, pushback, because frankly, that does happen to people who advocate strongly.
Right.
But also she very clearly was like, I do, endorse, Kamala Harris, and I just don't, fuck Donald Trump, etc. And and it still wasn't good enough.
Right.
And
It's never going to be good enough.
Well, no, because she totally missed the point on that. That it was actually to achieve a goal, because it was really just to take her down. And you see it all the time. I see it all the time it happens to trans women, anyone. You have this expectation of perfection that is impossible to ultimately be, because we treat our celebrities and we treat our politicians as these, like they're sports teams that we're rooting for. And an
It's
interview
personal.
isn't a play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first of all, controversy, absolutely. Second of all, she's right. And I think the thing that is so mad is I thought we weren't going to do the shut up and vote thing this time. I thought we all, and perhaps I have decided to stop letting myself get so infuriated, but the shut up and vote thing is not going to work. This is not, for as much as everyone wants to say, this is not the election to, what's the word, protest or sit it out or blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. First of all, you said that about the last election and the election before that. Next point.
I'm sure the Republicans are going to put a very sane, normal person in to be their next candidate.
Hello.
And so that's the one where,
it's all going to get fixed.
Lucy in the football with Charlie Brown, just this next election.
She's not going to move it. But, I think in particular, the hyper visibility of the atrocities that are being funded by the American people in Gaza, in Lebanon, all the other places that genocides are. The discourse around politics has become so much more expansive because there are so many people who are visibly, audibly, noticeably over it and have decided that, like, no, none of this is really working for me. I am out loud none of this is working for me. And so the people that are yelling at Chapel Roan for, like, literally not even saying anything that charged,
She didn't say
said
don't vote. She didn't say
she didn't say
like
fuck the government, which is what she was
yeah.
really saying, but, like, saying there's evil on both sides is even like a very tame, like, polite way of saying you're all corrupt and the voting process doesn't matter. Like, it's just such a bummer because what did you think she was going to be? And it speaks to, I think, the audience of people who, like you said, Shauna, about, like, we put these celebrities up on a pedestal, and I think a lot of, left leaning democratic white gays got a new icon in Chapel Roan. I mean, we all got a new icon in Chapel Roan, but for, like, white, like, progressives, I don't even, like, however they want to identify themselves, that they don't consider them leftists or they don't consider themselves socialists. They're not anti-establishment. They're a very pro-democratic party. Of course, they're mad at their queer drag queen rock pop star for not taking a stance because they all are still drunk on the Kool-Aid of the Democratic Party. And, like, fine, okay, we get it, but she's an artist. She has the right to say how she feels.
And I think the stance isn't as important as her actions because, as
Hello.
you said, the fact that she goes in and is supporting local drag artists in
Hmm.
every location
Like,
she does.
you're
Like,
saying
who's
she's a
doing that?
Trumper
Like,
because she
right?
didn't
Like,
say vote Harris? Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I don't mean
yeah,
to
if
sound
you
so
really
dramatic.
need Chapel Roan to tell you, like, anyone who's a big fan of Chapel Roan is like, and I need to wonder if she thinks I should vote. No, that's what
Right.
Taylor Swift's for.
Right.
Like, if you want someone who
Oh,
like speaks to her fans that actually has weight and is not
excuse
maybe
me. Oh my
maybe
God.
on the fence, Taylor
Yeah.
Swift, speak to those white women and let them
Yeah.
know they should
Yeah.
vote.
Yes.
That's the one
Absolutely.
that matters. Like,
Yes.
if we're gonna really talk about calling out our pop stars.
And just, I mean, the we should not expect people who are not politically aligned to have political opinions. Like, I understand the expectation around platforms and how to use them responsibly, but part of using them responsibly is, like, not misleading people and not lying to people. Like, use your platform, but use it to explore humanity and the I don't know, like, the nuance of thought. Don't scream use
Sure.
your platform but only say it the way I want to say it. Then you're not helping anyone.
Exactly. That is, I think, at the core of where these like celebrities and needing them to be these stand-ins and these cheerleaders when, they I just think it's so unnecessary and I just I don't know, I've been very frustrated at this like
It is
expectation
frustrating.
of perfection
It's
and I've seen
whiplash.
it happen. It is.
Like, okay,
They
wait, so
want to
we're
take
on
her
Chaperone Roan's
down.
side. Now we're not on Chaperone Roan's side. Okay, was that
Yeah.
good enough? Something I don't mean to interrupt you, Shauna, so please go ahead. But Janet Jackson is the thought that I wanted to say.
Hmm. Well, but like, and I think Janet Jackson's a great point because I remember you talking about it. I'm like, I don't need to be an ideological lockstep with my favorite artist.
With
Like,
my favorite,
I,
like, 50 something year old mother, like, millionaire, whatever,
mhm,
pop star. No, I don't need her to I mean, she fucked up. The thing is, she did fucked up. She did fuck up, especially, and it was actually Uxie that told me this because I was completely
Yeah, not believing
uninformed.
that Kamala was black or that she had
Yeah,
read that she wasn't.
Yeah, because her dad was white or something.
And after the fact that like
The
her
guy got fired.
publicist,
The
because he like
publicist,
apologized for her and like made like a
yes.
public apology, and then she was like, "No, I didn't," and fired.
Demita Joe, Janet, girl, where you got mad at someone for trying to clean up your mess. I mean, I will say again, she's allowed to have her opinion, and if she doesn't want her opinion misrepresented, fine. But just so you know, girl, your opinion is bad. Like your opinion is gonna hurt people and make them mad.
Right. Like if you have this many people in your circle telling you, like, girl, that this is not like that, this ain't it, and you're still like, yes, it is. That
Yes, it
there's a
is.
separate problem. There's a separate problem. I also think with
There.
Chaperone, she's had a lot of heat and like eyes on her, and I think this is why
Yeah.
I was so mostly outrageous with her, is because like she recently got very vocal about wanting like boundaries, because like she's a celebrity, so wherever she goes she gets bombarded by fans and people come up to her, like they interrupt her personal time, and she's like, this is not what I want. Like, do you just go up to some random stranger and like talk to her in this way, demand these things from her? Like, no, you're a random bitch, I'm a random bitch, like we don't know each other, and it can stay that way. Like, I'm off the
Right.
clock, like when I
Right.
perform, that's one thing, but like you can't be demanding these things. So people were like already on her brain, like, girl, you chose the wrong career if this is like the way you feel, and blah blah. And it's like,
No.
actually, no, this is correct. Like, she's allowed to
She is
have these
correct.
boundaries for sure.
Right.
Yes. And
So that's when like everything started shifting for her, and like now this whole thing,
That's a
and that's when
great
she
point.
got
That's
so pissed.
great point. Like,
Mhm. She's like, are you kidding me? Like, now this is happening. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I know you can see this. She's like, I can't win, but like, here's what you want to hear. Here's what I actually think. Quit taking things out of context. Move the fuck on.
Not this being the literal rise and fall of a Midwest princess.
We're
Like
watching it happen. She's gonna quit.
we're
I feel like
watching
life
she will.
imitating art.
life is imitating, like self-fulfilling prophecy much. Like
Yeah,
this,
it's actually
how
very sad.
it's very sad because, but I also hope that this, she just says fuck you and keeps doing whatever I mean, I think she will do that anyways, but like, don't worry about them hoes, girl. They were not going to be real Chapel Roan fans anyways. They are teenagers who have no real problems. And you know what? I was actually just thinking maybe I shouldn't say that. No, fuck you. If you're the type of person, if you're listening to this podcast and you are in my life, let's have a conversation about how you have really inappropriate expectations of other people's time, energy, and attention. You don't own anyone. They don't owe you anything. In the words of uh, Willie Nelson in Beyonce's Cowboy Carter interlude, Willie's Smoke Hour, I know what is, oh fuck, I wish I would have said it. You know my name and I don't need to know yours, because they don't. They don't need to know our name.
And that's fine.
And that's fine. Shauna, you were saying something about I when I interrupted you, I think you were saying something specifically about trans women, so I didn't want to interrupt that. But I know you also had made a connection with something with the boys.
Oh, so I'm watching The Boys right now with my partner Dara, and it's very interesting to see. And you so see how in that universe superheroes are these celebrities, and there's such a political element and religious element to it. And I feel like it's so seeing the way that we look at our current day politicians as these superheroes and celebrities, and not as servants of the public who are meant to help the greater good of the people, advocate for the will of the people. And I feel like we've so lost sight of that for so long ago, and that it's so like people obviously aren't in it for the right reasons, and it's about making money and staying in power. But it's very frustrating seeing that in this day, like, and it just I'm just kind of tired of that aspect, and I'm ready. Like, we should criticize our politicians because they're not infallible. Because even though they're better than being bad, that's not good enough to be good.
And I think that's a very punchy, witty phrase, but I would not say most of them are better than bad. I would say a lot of them are bad. And I want to share not my conspiracy theory, but where are you at in The Boys, Shauna?
I'm in early season 2.
Oh shit!
Is this your
You're
first
so
time
far
watching it?
behind.
Yeah, this is my first time watching it. Like,
Oh, Just wait, girl. Wait
Girl,
until you
this
get to
show is
the
fucking wild.
most recent season and check the dates
Ugh.
that they were aired, and you're gonna
Girl,
be like, wow, it's
I don't
insane.
I don't think that I am cool with people thinking I'm a conspiracy theorist because every day the more things I find out about like what's actually happening in the world, the more I'm like, okay, well maybe everything is true. Maybe all the conspiracies are true. But however, there is an episode in this most recent season that involves an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate, or not a presidential candidate. A is he running at that point?
I think it's someone that gets elected.
Yeah,
They had just gotten elected, and then an assassination attempt was made, but it was supposed to air 2 days after what's
the
his name's.
assassination attempt of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But
It
Interesting,
was crazy. They had
interesting.
to change and make an edit in the beginning saying that this in no way, shape, or form is related. There's we
yeah,
didn't obviously they couldn't predict it, but it was just very crazy how it already mirrors current day politics, and then this
yes.
crazy historical moment happens, and then it's portrayed on television 2 days later.
Well, I low key forgot about the part where the actual like scene was supposed to be out about an assassination attempt because what happens, and this means nothing, it is not a spoiler for you, Shauna, because but there are two groups of people that are at odds with each other, and it's basically framed as like Democrats and Republicans, and a person incites a fight between people, and then it gets all out of control, and then all of a sudden the fight dies down and there's three dead bodies that are beaten to death in the middle of the crowd of Republicans. And so it is being played like these Democrats were so vile and violent that they beat these Republicans to death. But what we saw earlier in the episode was that the Republicans set up for those three people to be murdered under the guise of like, hey, you're the biggest fans of this Republican. Come and meet that person. And instead they murder them, beat them to death, and then get the bodies transported back to the riot. So like literally they cannibalized themselves and made it look like this was this big violent thing. And I just couldn't help but keep thinking about how there was, a random dead person in the crowd after Donald Trump's assassination attempt. And I was like, no, I'm not suggesting that that man was. I'm not trying to say they are equal, but like, what do you mean? I'm gonna get put on a watch list. We have got to stop talking about this shit.
Yeah, we're like, all right, we're like, and cuts, technical
Right,
difficulties,
exactly.
screen,
All of a sudden,
like,
this
It was
episode is over.
Agatha. Oh la la.
Right, right, right. It was Agatha. Okay, so before we jump into that, the other thing that was on our list of random things to talk about is how all of our algorithms have become fucking Fortnite shit. And it all started with the Scarlet Witch over there
Yeah, my chaos
sending.
magic brought it into our friend group, and I'm not sorry because they are now that I understand it
They're
because we've
very
played
funny.
the game. They are
very
so
good.
funny,
And
and I'm like, oh my god, I get why kids go ham on this. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and why 30
yep,
somethings go ham on it.
and that's all my
the
algorithm.
culture of it is very fun in a way that I was
Yes,
not expecting. And I was
yes,
like, oh, it really does, in fact, be like that. That's
yeah.
true. It's
Fortnite
like,
does be like that. My best guy friend Anthony, who is also on our kickball team, was listening to the most recent episode we did with Snacks where we talked about Fortnite. And he literally said, he was like, I could send you a screenshot of the timestamp. As soon as you said you played Fortnite, I immediately paused the episode and texted you and said, bro, you play Fortnite? And like now, what a wonderful thing to be able to share with my longtime best friend. Like we play video games together and play kickball and hurt ourselves playing kickball. All but Uxmal, I specifically asked you to come back for this episode because you are in my coven as a sistren. Talk to me about why witchy things appeal to you. What's the desire?
I don't know. I think it's I It's probably one of several things. So I was raised by literally a coven of women, not a literal coven. They would hate me if I called them all witches. However, I lived in like a
However,
big, however, these brujas are my tias. Like I lived in a big
mhm,
house when I was a little toddler with like my grandma and at least five other of my aunts. And this like it was like a 4-story type of house in Chicago that they all like contributed and lived in. And so like my mom working 2 jobs, I was just always bouncing from one aunt to the next, just learning different, I don't know, things
spells.
in terms of like what is gonna mold me. And so like just that sisterhood I've always been around. So I think that's what has drawn me to it. So like my first introduction to magic was Charmed. And that was just
Yes.
game
Mm.
over. So like as
I
soon as I learned
mean,
about Charmed and I learned about these badass, powerful women that can do all sorts of really cool shit, I was just like, oh, I'm in this for life. Like
yeah.
sign me up, please.
Wait, so was Charmed really like are there any other important witch media to you? Because I Charmed worked for me because I was already into witchy shit. Like
Mm.
The Craft really kind of solidified me, but like I always loved the ideas of witches and saw myself
So
as one.
I was scared of everything when I was little. So like these witches
Yeah.
like battling these like demons and things that are just
Yeah.
like, I mean, it came out when I was probably, oh God, I don't even know how old I was, probably like 10. No, a little older. I
No,
was still like
because I
old
think it
enough. I
came
was
out
young enough
in
to still be scared of things, but old
yeah.
enough to like kind of start getting a grapple on reality. But these just were like they were helpful. So I up until that point, I just never watched anything scary or anything
Got it.
witchy like because it just was it was kind of supernatural
Supernatural.
stuff was not my vibe up until then. To where then I was like, well, maybe it is my vibe. Maybe I should just look at this from a different perspective. So I never watched The Craft up until then. Never watched
Oh my
Practical
god.
Magic even. I just was not in that. Like I was not cultured. I was really not cultured. My
Right.
TS failed in that department.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask because, like, I'm not trying to generalize or anything, but there is a lot of, like, your family's Mexican, so, like, specifically Mexican, like, or maybe just like Hispanic Latin American culture that is very superstitious, which is like witchy adjacent and like
Not
they're
in the way you think though. For them
interesting.
it's like it's the devil's work. So they never
Yeah,
even like when
Mm.
I mean in the
it's more
90s it
religious
wasn't really
aligned.
that like popular and it wasn't really that mainstream. So and even if it was mainstream, like my grandma lives and breathes the Bible. So like
Sure,
that's
right,
one
right, very
we
totally.
never even talked about that around my grandma and I was around her like I was attached to her
Right,
hip. Yeah, I mean santeria, brujeria, like those are things that are just not talked about because it's just like bringing it
Mm.
into the house or even mentioning it under the house.
right,
Hold up, let me say a couple Hail Marys and go through this rosary a couple times just to like get the bad
right.
juju out. So it was never ever brought in that way into like our home until like we moved out, my mom and my stepdad.
Yeah,
And he was actually the one that introduced me to Charm. I don't think knowing that he was just like educating this little
making
homosexual. Yeah, and then it was just like honestly, it's his fault.
yeah, totally.
Well,
Shauna,
okay, so
what about
then were
you?
you
Yeah.
also raised Catholic then in that
Oh
same Okay,
yes,
so like
I'm a
also like
survivor of Catholicism.
same as a former, a raised Catholic myself, but I think there's something to that in because there's such a undercurrent of spiritualism to Catholicism, and it's
Yeah,
obviously channeled in the one specific way. But I feel like there is such a, there's the incense and there, all of that kind of. There is a
it's
lot of rich.
ritualistic.
It's a lot of ritual.
Yes,
Like every mass is a ritual. Reenactment. Like so,
right.
I think there's something that really kind of lends one to that because you're so steeped in it, and like I think that's where I've always had such like a healthy respect for witchcraft and for all of
Yeah,
that because growing I was like I do think there's like a spiritual power to the world and I don't personally understand or really but like I know that I accept that it's there even
right.
even if I don't have necessarily the language or words in my life to tell it but like
Yeah.
And it's
Did you
honestly
like
more
witches?
believable.
Totally. I'm happier leaning into it.
Yeah, like
And I feel
compared to
like
like
I got more
how
powerful once I did lean into it.
yeah, because it's like you're giving thanks and you're like worshiping things that you can actually conceptualize rather than this one figure that gets twisted
Hmm.
throughout history and isn't even
Hmm.
represented correctly. And then like the
Hmm.
story changes however many times up until we get the book that we have now. And it's like, I don't like these rewrites, Mary, and I just don't like the story. So like I just would rather pick up a different book.
I don't like these rewrites, Mary, Uxie said about the Bible.
Just
Wait,
don't.
Shauna, were you like into witchy stuff though? Like high femme, it doesn't seem like you were able to really enjoy that stuff when you were younger.
No, I really like I always like I would see it in like the television shows I watched, like things like Sabrina the Teenage Witch was like a
Yes.
staple show. It was and but that's so very light on those
Yeah.
kinds of themes, but like
Yeah.
always like but always enjoyed it. But I also do think that Melissa Joan Hart's character Clarissa and Clarissa Explains It All, I feel like
Mm,
she's giving kind of techno-pagan vibes because let's face
totally.
it, if you're in the 90s and you can have those kind of computer programs and you can freeze time, I'm
Yep.
just
That's
saying, I
move
feel
over
like there's
Jenny
something going
Calendar.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. It was, I mean, a huge, being raised with two older sisters, like they were my sort of touchstone for culture and what was cool. And my middle sister, that's 5 years older than me, so when I was probably around like 7, 8, she was like 12, 13, 14, and she became, the white goth girly. Her and her friends started practicing witchcraft and like, I mean, I don't know that they were actually generalizing. To me, I thought that they were practicing witchcraft, but because I thought she was cool, I thought that shit was cool. And so like I kind of got brought into those things. Like I remember going to metaphysical shops with my sister when we were visiting my grandparents in New Jersey one time, and I was like I left with stuff. I left with like probably crystals, and I think I have a memory of like um not necessarily tarot cards, but like something, I think something about the zodiac and like what the signs were. It has just always been so interesting to me. And despite all of the trauma from growing up in such a sort of strange environment, the fact that my parents did not force organized religion on me made
Mm,
me extremely open to spirituality and
mm,
discovering my faith in my own way. And I'm super grateful for that because I have developed a relationship with the divine in my adult life and as I got older, and it brings me comfort in a way. Like there's no guilt associated with it. It took me until like my 20s, maybe even my like early 30s before I realized that like sometimes I'm actually talking to, like when I'm monologuing in my head, I'm actually talking to the divine, or I'm like, praying is talking with intention. I'm sure someone will be mad that I said it that way, but like the the idea, like Uxie said, of like worshiping, like I feel so at one with myself when I lean into those things, and like the way that nature connects us. Like I'm just I'm a big woo woo bitch, and that has always lent itself to me calling myself witchy and like really kind of like playing with the idea until my former partner once asked me, he said, "Are you a witch?" And I was like, I kind of think I am. Like I don't know how to tell, like and so it really all over the last like 10ish years really settled in as part of how I construct my belief system. But in general, I've always been a witchy girl. Like Charmed was, I like, the reason that I got Buffy recommended to me was because I like Charmed. Like I think
interesting.
part of that connection was like, oh, if you like Charmed, you'll definitely like Buffy. So yeah, very much so. The 90s, like the craft changed me. Like I am a faggot because of that movie. I will, I'm waiting for someone to ask me to, do light as a feather, stiff as a board. Like I hope that Anthony, if you are listening to me, if you are listening to this right now, I need you to co-sign that when we were like in middle school and my sister was in high school, we were having a sleepover, and it happened a couple times. She was probably stoned now that I think about it, but she would come downstairs and mess with me and all of my friends. And like one time she did a bunch of like those like light as a feather, stiff as a board things. She did the like crack an egg on your head, let the yolk run down. Do either of you remember that?
No.
I
mean,
know
like,
the former. I don't know the latter.
Got it. What did you say, Xie?
Oh, I know of the light as a feather, but not the egg one. I know about
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
they used to put my grandma would put like eggs under the bed to like
Yeah.
catch bad males espíritus and stuff like that, but not.
Anyways, enough about how gay people love witchcraft. We're here
So
to talk
about
about
witchcraft and
we're here to talk about Agatha All Along. If you are a person who's like completely out of touch with it, I can't imagine that you've stumbled onto this podcast other than loving one of the people that is speaking on this podcast. It is the follow-up to WandaVision, which is a show about the Scarlet Witch. And in WandaVision, we were introduced to, as portrayed by Uxmal, in WandaVision, we were introduced to Agatha Harkness, who in the comic books is Wanda's sort of like teacher. She's introduced in by way of the Fantastic Four's nanny, but ultimately she becomes like a mentor for the Scarlet Witch. She has like some stuff throughout the comics, but she is pretty inconsequential in terms of like she's not a crowd favorite. Like she got a show because Catherine Hahn acted her ass off, and Agatha All Along, the song fucking slaps.
And
And
actually, I think because she did such a great job, they
yes,
actually like reinvented her character in the comics, or like gave her like a new like she's
I
been
love that.
she's like
completely revitalized and young.
she's been like de-aged. Now she's like a cunty 40 something instead of like an ancient old crone. She's much
Like
more
she
of mother
died
than
in I forget which comic, I can't don't quote me, but she got brought back in the Scarlet Witch's panel
Witches
when she
Road.
actually goes down the Witch's Road. And then
Yeah.
series of events happens and she gets de-aged and she has this long black hair with a white streak in the front and it's just like this bombshell bitchy
Yeah.
witch. And it's like, oh, so they just put Catherine Hahn on panel. Cool.
Hmm.
Because of
They're
her.
like,
As
okay,
a
so the
soon-to-be
gays are
cunty
obsessed.
year-old, I love this.
Yes.
Like WandaVision.
You know how
Also,
like they
Adorable.
showed like in
I
the old and then just have her writing a book.
that was my witchcraft as a child. Bewitched. I
Totally.
loved Bewitched. It
I
was so
loved
I was
Bewitched.
such a Nick at Night girly. Like I
Same.
love so much. Like I love Lucy, Bewitched,
Nick at Night Block
Hydra
Party in the
Machine.
summer with Monkey Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, like that is I feel like I could just be, erasing some of my friends, sorry, but like I feel like when I talk about Nick at Night, not a lot of people remember it, and I fucked with Nick at Night
I've
heavy.
always been a night owl, even as a
Same.
kid, and it was
Same.
so I loved it. I love those like old school, like they were just that was definitely where I think I grew up a lot on like
Yeah.
the shows that I watched by myself where I was like, I did just watch a lot of I Love Lucy,
A
as
lot.
most normal boys do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so pivoting back because technical difficulties. So anyways, Agatha Harkness is a like C-list character at best in Marvel Comics until very recently, like the last 10 years, because she was featured in Scarlet Witch's solo series in 2014, 2015. So this picks up after the course of WandaVision. We'll do like, let's talk about our just like initial response to the show, and then we'll kind of do like quick episode recaps for one and
And
two.
this is going to be a spoiler zone. So if you
Oh,
have not
yes.
watched it and do
Thank you for
not
saying
want
it.
to, this is a great time. We're going to put the timestamps when we post it of where we start
Yes.
talking about spoilers and then where to come back on it. So,
Yes.
note to selves.
4105.
Perfect.
Okay, so overall reaction so far, just about the first 3 episodes. How are we feeling, Uxmal?
I'm very excited, but
Mhm.
also, I mean, I'll leave it there until we get to the third episode. But I'm just
Yeah,
at
and
first I was
I
also,
very worried about it because I was like, okay, how great can they make the show? Then going into like the interviews that they did leading up to like the premiere of it all, and then actually seeing that the people behind this like this awesome show really cared not only for the characters, the comics, and like respected witchcraft also while they were creating this show. So I think I was telling you guys yesterday that they like the director, executive producer, like assembled teams to go out and do research on different types of magic and different types of witchcraft, and kind of honed in different elements from different cultures or different iterations of witchcraft to put together this show. And you see it in little dosages like here and there while you're watching it. So it makes me very excited for the things that we're about to see, and it's made me very happy for what we've seen already.
Shauna.
So I think the reason why I've enjoyed Agatha All Along so much is that a lot of the Marvel TV shows feel like not quite Marvel movies, but their pacing is not of television. They feel
Sure.
like Marvel entries, and this feels like a TV show. And I think
Hmm.
I felt the same way about WandaVision, and I felt the same way about She-Hulk.
Hmm. Oh,
And I don't
justice
think
for
it's
She-Hulk.
so I don't think it's an accident that they're all women-led shows, firstly. And I think there's something to be said for that, but that they're carried by these strong acting performances by, especially like I'm not sure of Elizabeth Olsen's TV experience, but like Catherine Hahn and
Yes.
Tatiana Maslany are obviously big like TV people from there. And so I think they really are so well versed in that medium. And I feel
Right.
like it's an exemplary aspect of it.
Very
So I
much
really
so
liked
that.
it.
I have been a Catherine Hahn fan for a very, very long time. I think her turn on WandaVision was so fun. And, Uxie and I watched it together in real time. And, we are arguably the two most nerdy about Marvel properties. So we have been annoying about it since day one. Like, we have since we saw Agnes, we're like, oh, that's Agatha Harkness. Like, what is that? Like, they're bringing in Agatha Harkness? And just to watch it all transpire and be wrong so many times, but also be right so many times, like, very much so, sort of nerd gratification when things are like done right and done well. And I think WandaVision was done so well. And so I was like, I had high hopes for Agatha All Along, and so far they've been met and exceeded. I am a Marvel maximalist, though. I want it all. I watched every awful second of Secret Invasion. It does not change my feelings on the MCU just because they put out an absolute garbage program. I mean, because my feelings of the MCU are pretty straightforward, but like, I'll watch it. If I think it's bad, I'll stop. Actually, that's not true. I won't stop, but if I think it's bad, I will acknowledge that it's bad. But like, I love these properties. I love this world. I love this universe. And every time that they expand it, I'm like, I'll give it a shot. Like, I don't read most of these stories. Like, I've always been a Scarlet Witch fan. I actually have my uh Scarlet Witch Avengers toy that I got when I was a kid. I rebought it because I saw it on. Did I buy that for you too, Uxie? I bought you the Emma Frost one. Uxie and I realized we had like several of the same toys growing up, and so one time I got him the Emma Frost figure that I also have up there. Anyways, I've always liked the girls, so Scarlet Witch was an easy sell. Like, Agatha Harkness, I had no real excitement about her as a character other than I'm really excited that magic is in the MCU officially. Like, this is really the not the first supernatural one, but like, we didn't get the magic of Wanda until the end of it. We had like Doctor Strange and stuff, but like, that didn't feel like as much as the emphasis as like, we're going to set this person up as an Avenger. Like, it just so happens that he's the magic using Avenger. So anyways, we're all kind of on the same lines. Let's get into a quick episode 1 recap. Uh
Thoughts.
3. Okay, so Uxie, if you want to recap the first episode of Agatha All Along.
Yes. So we meet Agnes 3 years later, post WandaVision, and it starts out in a very Mayor of Easttown. If any of you have ever seen that before,
Yeah,
but you
no,
learn that
but
she
yeah.
is it's a Kate Winslet show. It's very good.
Yeah, I only know of it because of like everyone comparing the two, but yeah.
I mean, it's very like spot on. It's actually kind of
Yeah.
funny. But we find out that Agnes is a detective somehow, is meeting Herb, who's also a
Mhm.
detective, are in the same, or is a police officer. They find a body. They're trying to figure out who this body or the person is that they find. While she's trying to figure out this case, we end up meeting Rio Vidal, who is Aubrey Plaza's character, and we immediately learn that their relationship is very complicated. She doesn't recognize Rio immediately; she just looks at her as like an FBI agent, and things get very intense. Flash forward to a couple hours later, we're back at Agnes's place, and this is our first introduction that we get of Teen, who is breaking into Agnes's house while she's there with Rio, who happens to show up overnight to talk the case over, but really is just trying to poke around in her mind. Get Teen arrested. They get to the station as she's trying to question him, and that's when things start really unraveling for Agnes, because throughout the day she's having these little slip ups of things that she's remembering from her real life, and you start getting the sense that she's not really in this position and there's something off about her surroundings. So as she starts putting things together, we find out that Teen is somehow in her head trying to break her out of this thing. We don't know how, we don't know what he's doing, but Rio is also there trying to help Catherine Hahn claw her way out into her full Agatha potential. And the scene that we get of her clawing her way out is absolutely phenomenal, of her going
Yeah,
through the
great
ages that we
television.
saw through WandaVision. It's
Great
very great
television.
television, because then it ends with the end of the episode of Catherine Hahn butt ass naked
Sure does.
outside to her neighbor's delight. And then knowing that that's actually Catherine Hahn's butt just makes it that much funnier that she pitched it and she's like,
Mhm.
I need to do this. Like, this has to be done. And for like great reasons too. I mean, she gives like
Right.
her like witchy side of why this is important to do or why it should be great to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's the end of episode 1 as she comes to realize that she just broke out of Wanda's spell.
And I
Yeah.
also think she
So,
realized she might be gay because the
oh
looks
yeah.
between her and Rio, just
Yeah.
saying.
It's giving
Yes.
very Willow and Tabula Rasa. Like, I think I'm kind of gay.
Thank you. Yes.
So, a couple of key points. The thing that we realize is that the spell that Wanda had cast in WandaVision, when she released it at the end of that show as punishment for Agatha, she kept her in that spell. So she kept Agatha only under that spell. So what we learn throughout the episode is that, and this is my take, but Agatha was stuck in like the sort of like Modern Family era. So that's the last episode of, that's like the last time we see her under the spell in WandaVision. And when Wanda puts her back under the spell, she puts her in like a very contemporary sort of outfit. And so I took that to mean like she's stuck there in that particular iteration of the spell. But what we get to when she breaks out of the spell is that it was only recently that she transitioned into this like true crime sort of vibe, which is commentary on like the current sort of obsession with true crime like the true crime at home detective type of programming that has been shoved down our throat for however long. People get mad at the MCU. Let's talk about propaganda. Let's talk about how rampant that shit is, but neither here nor there.
Well, she transitions away from being a cop shortly thereafter, and good for her for
Thankfully,
living that truth.
full ACAB. Um, so my take was the dead body that we've seen is assumed to be Wanda because Wanda dies with giant air quotes around it at the end of Multiverse of Madness. Really quick, my question to you all, what did you take the burned books to be in the library?
The
I
Darkhold
think
theme.
Yeah, they referred to the different copies of the Darkhold and how there was now the last one left. And I
There's
think
none
that
left. They're all gone.
but the one that was Agatha's was the last, or
Yes.
I think the one that was destroyed last, perhaps maybe is
Yeah.
the
So
like
Wanda took the Darkhold from Agatha at the end of WandaVision and was using it in Multiverse of Madness, and that's the one that got destroyed. And then when Wanda sacrificed herself, she eliminated all of the copies of the Darkhold, including the original copy of the temple to Chthon that she collapses onto herself. So I that's what I took as well, because like the book that they were referencing with the ticket number thing was in reference to the Darkhold. But I heard someone talking about how it seemed like that's the library where the two visions fought, and that's what actually destroyed that.
Well, that's not true. That is the library
Right,
where
it
the
is.
but they fixed it. And so the one book that she came in with, the little what are those called? Like the little
Mhm.
slips that go on the inside of the
The
library
ticket,
book. Um they tell her that it was stolen, so you
right,
never get the copy back. But then there's like the whole, I mean, that it's a good way of saying, like, obviously she doesn't know what happened with that one book, but she is aware that the rest of them are burned, and so that library structure of all those books burned was just like a way
right,
of her subconscious saying, like, there's no Darkhold left.
right, right. Yeah, it was definitely that's what I felt too. Other key points: Rio Vidal, Aubrey Plaza. Talk about it.
Yes.
Talk
I mean,
about
what's
it.
there to talk about, because they left it all in subtext.
They
When are we going to get it to move past that?
Great question. Will we get
I'm
the
ready.
text? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there needs to be something in the year 2024. There needs to be just a little
Correct.
something more, that if you're going to have her dressed like that, making looks, literally putting her like hand, there's
It
so
was
much there that I feel like one singular line would have
yes,
not been so egregious.
right.
But at the rate they're not even allowed to do that, they're so risk averse to showing queerness in such an overt way. And I'm both like glad, because like I love it. It's
Yeah.
great, but like, come on.
We don't just need subtext anymore.
Yeah,
We want the text.
mhm. We
Well,
lived
Yeah.
what
on
was that one
subtext for
line that
years.
they said?
Hello.
What was that one line that Aubrey, or like, I think
If she says she wants her horizontal and then she
Oh
like
yeah.
quickly adds in a grave, like shut Aubrey Plaza was not supposed to say horizontal. She was supposed to say laid out in a
she
grave or
ad-libbed
something.
it. She's like,
And
I'm gonna
she
make
ad
this
libbed
so
that.
gay.
Yeah, yeah. And they have great chemistry. Like
Well, they've
I'm
worked
into
together
it.
before. Actually, no, they haven't worked together
They
before.
interacted on Parks and Rec,
Yeah, they always
which
Yeah.
filmed
is
on separate days, or
incredible.
it was like a passing.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, they never, and their characters never interact. Like there was,
No, because like as I think about it, of course not, because like that wouldn't be.
right. And then we have Teen. What are your thoughts? Who is Teen? Who's Teen?
Well, I can't make an opinion on this
Shut
because,
up. Yeah, you're
yeah.
so irritating. I forgot Uxie
No,
saw
okay,
something.
no. See, it's never my fault because I subconsciously opened social media after we finished the third episode, and
Yeah.
Funko Pops had to go and ruin it for me with the leaked picture of who Teen is and who Rio Vidal is. So, like, but it makes a lot
And
more, it makes it
shut
fun
up,
figuring it
shut
out.
up, shut up. Yeah, shut up. I
I'm
don't
not
want to
saying
hear
anything.
another single word. I don't want to hear a single word. Shauna, who do you think Teen is?
I mean, it's probably Scarlet Witch's son.
Yeah,
Like it feels very much like the path they're going down. Like sometimes like the easy option's easy, and it's
right,
okay to just be the right like pick.
right. Uxie is a terrible liar, so I'm trying to read his micro expressions. Interesting that you've got your arms crossed and you're holding your face in your hand to limit any type
That's
of
what I've been doing
movement
this
of
whole podcast.
awkwardness.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, I think it is Billy Kaplan, aka Wiccan. I will be disappointed if it's not. I'm preparing myself for disappointment, but my whole thought, and we were wrong a million times in WandaVision. Like we were wrong every time during WandaVision, so I should
So
Only
not be
because I might
surprised.
be proven
I
right
really
recently.
want to talk about that. Because
Yeah.
like when we were, and this is kind of jumping ahead to kind of, episode 2,
Mm.
3, but like kind of like, oh, does he have, the soul of Nick Scratch also in him and all of that kind of like, and I'm like,
Right.
that feels like something that Marvel nerds like ourselves would postulate on, but actually they're not going to do that. They are
I
There's a
like
don't
lot of
know,
red
dude.
say
herrings.
about Mephisto in WandaVision, where it's like, ooh, maybe, and like
Yeah.
they're not gonna
But
do
this
that.
time they
Yeah, that would
said
be a great
Mephisto.
idea,
Yeah.
but well, and that was I did love that callback, but in my opinion, if you think that we're getting anything more than the name drop, I think
Oh,
you're
I don't know.
going to
I
be
think we're gonna get Mephisto. I think we're gonna get Mephisto.
I
I don't think.
I
If anything,
do you
maybe
think
at the end,
this
like gives
season
you
or
like
generally?
I think I don't know. Maybe I don't think we're gonna get Mephisto because we don't actually need him yet to
Thank
do
you.
anything. We
I mean,
just
he's
need to
coming. It's
understand
already
it.
reported he's going to be in Ironheart.
Wasn't it supposed to be Sacha
See,
Baron Cohen?
Yeah, I think it still is.
that's an interesting decision.
Yeah, but I kind of get it. But I also am not a huge Sacha Baron Cohen fan. So Teen could very well be Agatha's son. They are really fucking with us. Like the sigil on his mouth, it looks like a W and an M for Wanda Maximoff. Like
Mm.
that's what I saw. But again, I'm happy to
Now
be
I wanna pay
wrong.
attention to that because that does sound right.
So we jumping to episode 2, my really my notes that I actually think describe the episode perfectly are who is Teen question mark. We all know it's Wiccan. We're assembling a coven. We're singing. There's scary demons coming. So what we learned at the end of episode 2 is that
Catherine
there
Hahn's an angry singer.
yes, facial wise at least, right?
Yeah.
so we are introduced to this concept of the Witch's Road, which Teen. So the reason she calls him Teen is because he asks to go on the Witch's Road, and she says something like, "What am I going to do? Take a kid on the Witch's Road?" And he says, "I'm not a." He says, "I'm 19," and she goes, "Sorry, a teen." And so that's why she calls him Teen, and like it just sticks. But Teen asks to be taken on the Witch's Road, and he tells us that it is a uh, an opportunity for a witch to uh, get their greatest wish fulfilled at the end of the road if they pass all the trials. And from that, we get introduced to Agatha's soon-to-be coven, starting in reverse order because I don't know. I think Patti LuPone would demand to be billed last. But we have poor Deborah Jo Rupp as Sharon Mrs. Hart, who Sharon slash Mrs.
Wait,
Hart.
who's Sharon?
Her name is Sharon.
Mrs. Davis.
Sharon. So Mrs. Hart is identified as the Green Witch because they have to have all the elements covered in different types of witch.
She's a
And
great
What are the
so
character.
elements? Can we just what are the elements of witchiness in
gather
this?
sisters water, fire, earth, and air. So earth, air, fire, water.
Okay, thank you.
So it is kind of convenient because her name is Hart. Her name was Mrs. Hart to Agatha Agnes, and so it would make sense that Hart, but obviously it's also that's not it. And she also is a gardener, so like it does kind of make sense. Like she can pull this off.
Well, also, there's
Also,
that note that Catherine was following because she got that from Patti LuPone's character, and there was a
yes.
part. I
Oh,
think in her mind, she just thought, "Oh, Hart, Mrs. Hart."
well, no. Okay, so maybe we don't have to go in reverse order. The first witch that we are introduced to is none other than Lila Calderon or whatever her name is. Apologies, but it doesn't matter because it's Patty fucking LuPone. And the fact that Patty LuPone is in the MCU will never, ever stop tickling me. However, I think her presence also elevated it. Like they're using practical effects and practical sets. And I have to believe that it's because Patty LuPone said, "Don't put me in front of a fucking green screen. Don't put me in front of a fuck. I would not be surprised if it was like a part of her demands. Like, I won't act with on green screens.
Mhm. Well, and the way that Patty LuPone, ate scenery and
Yes.
that appetizer, like just
Yes.
making those little
That
subtle like
separation they
just it was such wonderful acting and so
yes.
very that theater aspect really coming and shining so brightly.
Yes.
Gosh, it's why it's been such a fun show. Like,
Totally. She's just an incredible actress in general, and a great character actor. And the one thing that I did want to also acknowledge, one of my favorite moments in so far have been when Agatha comes out of the spell and she starts like losing her shit. And later at the end of the first episode, when she's putting on her clothes and she goes, "Whose shoes are these?" Every single time, I've watched it 4 times now. Every single time I laugh out loud because never forget that Catherine Hahn is your favorite comedic actor's favorite comedic actor. Like, she is so fucking funny. She's so incredible. And so I am just her and Patty LuPone together, her and Aubrey Plaza together, like, to say nothing of the other characters, but like those dyads in particular are really just a joy to watch. So Patty LuPone is a clairvoyant, and she has a vision of who Wanda's coven or who Agatha's coven is. She writes it all down and she gives it to Agatha to start finding the rest of her coven to walk the road. And so we have Layla Calderon on there as one of the witches. So she joins Agatha's coven. We are then introduced to Sashir Zameda's character, whose name is Jennifer Kale, and she's the potions girly. Obsessed. Like, I don't think she's the best actor in the world, if I'm being honest. But I love her. I loved her on SNL. I love her on SNL. I think she's very, very funny. She's a great face actor.
hmm.
But I'm giving her space to grow. And imagine acting next to Patty LuPone. I'm saying.
You're bound, and you need a chemical peel.
And you need a chemical peel. Suck it, Patty LuPone. So we get Jennifer Kale, the potions girly, and then we are introduced to Alice Wu Gulliver, played by Ali An, who is the daughter of a goddess rock star witch who wrote a commercial version of the Witch's Ballad, which we hear for the first time later in the episode. That is the song that you have to sing. It's like the incantation that you have to sing to open the road, but it also gives you instructions on how to access the road. So they get Alice Wu Gulliver to join their coven. And then when they're like, where's the fourth person? We need a green witch. That's when we learn that the fourth name on the list was just a black heart. In the previous episode, we were informed by Rio Vidal that she has a black heart because Agatha says, uh, she says to Agatha, like, knowing that Agatha Harkness is going to meet her end warms my heart. And Agatha says, you don't have a heart. And Rio Vidal says, yes, I do. It's black and it beats for you. So that black heart is clearly Rio Vidal as the Green Witch, which they kind of spoiled with a couple of previews when they showed her like coming out of the earth. But oh, you're so annoying, Uxie. Okay,
I'm not
anyways.
saying anything.
Yeah, it's fine. You're
With
not saying
your
anything.
words.
With your words, right, as she silently curls her hair. So she goes and gets Mrs. Hart, aka Sharon Davis, played by Deborah Jo Rupp, to be the Green Witch. They summon the Witch's Road and they depart. Favorite moments from episode 2, other
The ballad.
than You Need a Critical Peel? Yeah. The ballad.
I mean, what a great to get the writers who originally wrote Agatha All Along, but then also did like the most popular songs from like Frozen,
Yep.
oh my god, what was the other one? I had just listed. Anyways, they're great, incredible writers, and like it's just a fantastic. And it's already broken so many records in terms of like streams, and the fact that like our one other mutual friend Kyle just told me recently that apparently his child, who can barely speak, loves to sing this song all around the house, and he's just like, I don't know how to stop it, and I kind of don't want to. It's just that great.
Yay, Reed. Thank
Yep.
you, Reed. Oh my
I was
God,
like,
wait,
oh,
how funny is
Little
that?
Witch in
Because,
Making.
yeah, Reed Richards' kid is the one that introduces Agatha Harkness into the comics because they're her nanny. What
Bless
about you,
him.
Shauna? Favorite moments?
Well, so obviously the song, and so I really we all watched together last night for like the new episode, and we're watching that. And when it came on, we all started singing.
Hmm.
And there was this moment where I'm like, wow, there's like something kind of powerful about it. But it also made me like think like, gosh, this is like a plot from a TV show that they'd put some real witchy shit in this
Yeah.
TV show and then get a bunch of people to then sing and like actually cast it
Yes.
together through their mutual singing. And
Yes.
I
And then
was like,
Missy
and then I'm like,
perfect.
well, because then my conspiracy theory ass needed to like step down for a sec. But that was like my thought. I was like, ooh.
We
But
are we
also
all
like, but there was also
participating?
something to it where like
Hmm.
as like we were all doing it, I was like, oh, like I was kind of feeling that like energy in that moment in the moment.
Totally. Which reminded me, quick sidebar, of when me, Uxie, and Taryn went to see Janelle Monáe in Columbus, and I did a lot of mushrooms, like a lot. And Janelle Monáe was like on the stage in this like floral outfit, and like their album, The Age of Pleasure, is very, very important to me and came out at a really important time. And so, like, I really do hold Janelle Monáe in like pretty high regard. So that mixed with them like dancing on stage, singing about pleasure covered in flowers, I was like, oh no, I'm participating in like a cult ritual. Like I'm giving myself to the great deity of Janelle Monáe. So like sometimes it's the drugs, but sometimes it's because so much of, belief systems are about people believing them. Like, the sort of I don't know, adage, or like the idea that like the gods were only powerful because people worshipped them, and once people stopped worshiping them they lost their power. Like that's
Mm.
not an uncommon thought. And so like, yeah,
American
maybe
Gods is
um
Fables.
the character
Like,
Exodus in X-Men.
wait, did you ever read Fables? The Bill Willingham. Oh my gosh, it was, and it's one of those things that like I'm not sure how much it would hold up today, but at
Sure.
the time was such a fascinating like conceit of all of these different fable, like creatures escaping their worlds and coming to live in New York. And
Oh.
because they're all being chased off by an adversary who like chases them all out of their like homelands. So, you've got everyone from, like Snow White, Prince
Hmm.
Charming, the Big Bad Wolf. Jack is every Jack of Fable,
Hmm.
like, and so it's
Oops,
really
small. Sorry, John. Was there more to that? Because I was just going to
no,
say
just
oops.
but it has the same premise of like, oh, some characters are more powerful. Like Snow White's very powerful because everyone knows Snow White because of
Hmm.
Disney.
Hmm. What does that remind you of? All the woodland creatures fleeing for safety. It's like a whole plot
Once
line
upon
in
a
Charmed.
time.
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
too.
that too.
Oh, that too. So I really enjoyed the scene in the car with Agatha and Teen for a couple of reasons. One, because again, Catherine Hahn is a hysterical comedic actress, and there are a number of moments when she really hits like a comedic beat. So one of the things that she said that made me love the episode so much and literally kind of made me like tear up was, she said, "Wherever you are, a coven there shall be." And there is something about that. There's something about the coven that I have found as an adult, and how much, covens are like about sisterhood, and how powerful that has always felt to me. And so the fact that I do feel lucky to almost always find my people in my coven wherever I land, that really like kind of hit for me. And she says it as if it's corny, which it kind of is. And I think her character is saying it in a way that is like, you know, people are witches, and you know, she says like within any 3 mile radius there's enough witchy enough people to form a coven. And so I think, you know, what she's also saying is like, I'm a bad bitch, but like I just need some bodies, like I just need some people who see themselves as witches, and I can make a coven. And what we learn is that each of the witches that participates in Agatha's coven has their own motivation for, you know, whatever reason. But the moment that she says that and she starts talking about the Covenstead rule, Teen says, hey, can you actually write that down for me? There's a pen in the glove box. And so she goes, oh yeah. And she like goes in the glove box and shows him the pen and then fucking throws it out the window. And like, it's so funny and subtle. And then she like reaches for his notebook and she's like, oh, do you want and, no, sorry, I'll remember to write it down later. And that really tickled me and continues to make me laugh every time I rewatch it, which is a bunch. And reminds me of Patti LuPone shamelessly throwing a chicken nugget at the camera after refusing to apologize to Madonna. Same energy. Oh, I also wrote down that Agatha mocking the teen in the car is very similar to her mocking him in the interrogation when she's like writing on the notepad and she says, asleep in bed, total loser.
Or total lying.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about before we jump into episode 3 is the choreography of women's fight scenes. I was so like, the fact that they portrayed Rio and Agatha like down and dirty, like grappling, fighting, like it wasn't all charmed, Buffy, I don't get me wrong, I love the fight scenes in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The idea that this woman is fighting vampires in stilettos, work, Diane, obsessed.
Yeah, like those pleather pants have no give. How is she doing kicks that high?
It makes no sense. None of it makes sense. The first time I realized that it was a stunt double, because it did take me a little while to figure that out, was I saw, I think it was like a season 2 episode, or maybe season 3, it doesn't matter, but I had noted that Buffy was wearing really cute like boots or heels or something. But then in the fight scene, I noticed I looked specifically at her feet because I was like, this bitch is fighting it. The person was wearing like just flats. And then I was like, wait, that's not what she was wearing. That's not Sarah Michelle Gellar. And like, that was when I realized that there was a stunt double in there. Sophia Crawford, actually. Yeah. Oh, so I just really liked that they made them fight for real. Like it looked like of how actual people fight.
The knife grab
with superpowers, yeah.
Ooh, yeah. When she grabs the blade under the knife, that really like flipped my stomach. I was like, oh, y'all are going for like the really gory stuff. I'm like, please don't slice the hand off. Like, I'm like, please.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she had to cut her hand open so she could lick her blood off later like a weirdo.
And in the rules, you can't kill me, I can't kill you. Mystery.
What do you think that's about?
I know what it's about.
Oh, Jesus, man. All right, so...
Only because I know who she is, so it makes...
All right, so we'll get into episode 3, which sees our coven embarking on the Witch's Road. And the first thing that happens is Sharon has had enough. Sharon says, this is a kidnapping. I'm going to call the authorities. And she's right. She has been taken somewhere against her will. But we really see... What'd you say?
So by another witch. She was been kidnapped mentally before.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my God. And so the quick synopsis. So like we see them preparing to go on the road. We see Mrs. Hart almost get swallowed up, and we learn that you cannot step off the road, and otherwise bad things will happen, which is an interesting device. And I am listening to this book called The Something of the Wild Deeps. It's like a queer Black sci-fi book. And they explore this area called the Wild Deeps, and like you can't step off the road or something bad will happen. And then they are introduced to this lovely home, and this is the start of the first trial. Thoughts of seeing them on the road? What did you all think about the start of the episode?
It's very reminiscent. So I've noticed that they are all. I'm curious how big. Okay, wait, let me start over. So we've all seen the promos for the show. So there's been like the sneak peek footage that we're going to get like a Wizard of Oz episode. So it's interesting, and I'm very curious to see how big this episode is going to be, because they've been like teasing it since the very beginning. Like when I was watching some other YouTuber and they pointed out that the line that Herb specifically says to Agnes when oh my god, she's really most certainly dead, that's a line that one of the Munchkin uses to describe the Wicked Witch being dead also to Dorothy. So that was like the first introduction, and there's like a couple other ones in the second one, and then now we have like this road. It's not a yellow brick road, it's just this witch's road, and the way that they show the beach house is very reminiscent of like how they are introduced, like they show like the vision of Oz in front of like this long road. So it's like they're already implanting these like little tiny like seeds of like this is going to be a big episode. So I kind of like that setup, because it's just like, oh, it's going to be juicy. It's probably either going to be either Agatha's trial or maybe even Patty's trial. I haven't really figured that part out.
Well, they have Patty styled as the Glinda the Good Witch in it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's going to be one or the other. And like their setup of like what trial this is, like they put so much detail into it, which is why I love these writers that also had a big hand in WandaVision. And even watching that show, there was so many little tiny itty bitty details that people could point out and be like, oh, this is in reference to this is in reference to that, look at this callback to the comic in this part. And it's like them from just approaching the door and setting up what's inside is incredible. Like the fact that there's a whole new moon, which is a symbol for water, or a full moon, I'm sorry, and then there's also like the crab that's on like the bench, which is like a zodiac symbol for the crab, which is also a symbol for water. So it's just
and it is the potions girl's test. So and
so
I think
she's water, right?
She's the water element, So let's talk about the first test. So they get into the home. They're all restyled into like
Real Housewives,
waspy sort of housewifey. They look like they belong in Big Little Lies. Like they all, and the fact that they drink those big goblet wine glasses. I'm like, yes, these. Alice Wu Gulliver says it's definitely a hold your tea with two hands. And I don't know if that's a reference to something, but whenever I joke about like the type of white woman I feel like, it's baggy sweater holding a mug with two hands staring out the window. You know what I mean? Like two hands.
The fall girl.
A fall girly, or also a coastal girly, chunky knit sweater, short shorts, still holding a cup of coffee with two hands. So they don't really know what's going on, but there is a bottle of wine. Oh, they're given a riddle that is like really easy to solve. But my first critique, the writing is a little tell, don't show. Like they are laying the exposition out quite heavily. Like they started this episode, I took a note of it, like, how are we going to do this with no powers? We can't do this. And Teen is like, what about analog magic? Like really working. And I'm like, all right, we get it. You have to teach us these things. Like you have to tell us these things. But I feel like there are ways that we can get it.
Well, and like even like Catherine Hahn was like, this is let's follow the obvious breadcrumbs and do the obvious thing.
Yes. So they are kind of leaning into that too, because when they see the house for the first time, Sashir Zamata's character, Jennifer Kale, says, was that there before? And literally, I said the same exact thing, and then it was repeated by Agatha, which was like, we should stop asking that question. We're going to have to stop asking that question. Because I was like,
you did. I remember, like,
what do you mean you're confused by the strange things that are happening? You're witches on the witch's road. You sang a song and a magic door opened. Like, yeah, girl, it's spooky-ooky up in here. Also, the line I wrote down when Mrs. Hart her purse is dropping into the water, into the
that is from
quick.
Talbot's.
This came from Talbot's. Like, they really are, like, Mrs. Hart is an icon. So, do one of you want to talk about the actual trial that they come across?
I mean, I love that they used actual physical, like, costumes and makeup for the faces.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it wasn't CGI'd and it was actually this, like,
Practical effects.
detail
Yeah,
made it so much more interesting, though it definitely was, like, had a weird look to it, but, like,
totally. Yeah. So, they all sort of are like, okay, there's this bottle of wine. The clue is wine. Mrs. Hart is clearly a wino, and she's like the first one to take a freaking goblet down the guzzle.
she's had a
And
rough day.
she's had a rough
Let her
day.
drink. Like,
Her
you
Talbot's
know what? I
bag.
get it.
Her Talbot's bag.
Gone.
So it's gone. Is Agatha gonna reimburse her for? Oh, so so Mrs. Hart's face is the first one to swell up, and Jennifer Kale goes, "We've been poisoned." Complaint number 2. You're a potions bitch. You didn't think they do show her sort of like smelling it, but I'm like, it's a trial. You all understand it's a trial. You're being told to drink something. Potions girl, we brought you here for a reason. Where are you at? So we learned they've been poisoned. They figure the potions witch does kind of quickly get her shit together and realizes what the poison is and sets off everyone to collect the ingredients to brew an antidote, which gets us into some hallucinations that are happening. The first one we hear is Mrs. Hart hallucinating that she's still trapped under the spell of Wanda in the very first episode of WandaVision when they're having dinner and she says, "Wanda, please let him breathe." And then I can't remember who we have next. Who else's hallucinations do we see?
It's Lila, and then it's Alice Wu,
Mm-hmm.
and then Jennifer Kale comes
Jennifer.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And a really cool moment, because I don't think we really get a good visibility. I noticed that. So each woman has like a different type of like pendant or different
Yes.
type of like amulet. Like
Yes.
even Mrs. Hart does. So like we have Lila, who has like this pendant that has like these 2 hands with an eye in the middle, which I mean clearly is like a one for her like divination abilities. You have Jennifer Kale, who has like the quartz, the rose quartz, which like if you're a crystal user, rose quartz is like super powerful for like mending relationships. So there's like a little nuance like hints there of like, are these witches going to heal their relationship because they all freaking hate each other for some reason?
Mm-hmm.
And she also has like this little potion vial pendant like wrapped around her waist also. And then I didn't realize that Alex was wearing one also, but then you see it very clearly because when she hallucinates her mom, who's like crying about her grandmother dying, she's wearing the exact same pendant. So it's like something that you see that gets passed from like one generation to like the next through death. Maybe you don't really get that detail, obviously. And then Mrs. Hart has a little moonstone, it looks like, when she's like wearing, which is like a symbol for like new beginnings. So it's like, it's very cute how each of them have like some little detail. And then Agatha, obviously, with the Mother Maiden crown. I don't think Teen has one, but I don't think they're really kind of including him in the whole like 5 points.
So I heard something about how, or I saw something about how he has symbolism all over his clothes. Like he has like the evil eye on his sweater. It's just like in the designs, like, Marvel loves to do that shit.
I'll want to pay attention for him then.
Yeah, the first, well, and so anyways, yeah, well, when they come into the house, one of them says like, "Oh, we all still have our amulets," and I was like, "Wait, they all have amulets?" And so that was like when I clocked it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we see Lila's hallucination, which is basically just her kind of freaking out. I don't remember what hers was about.
It was like they were dressed in like, because remember she makes that comment in the beginning that she hated being able to predict tragedies because she got ran out of town each and every single time for predicting tragedy. So these are like people dressed in like those villager days when she lived. So it was like a callback to either a memory. You see the figure of like death coming in behind the person that she's hallucinating. You do kind of learn a little bit more, and I didn't piece it together until you started making a comment about Jennifer being really bad at her job. But like, if you think about it, before she joined the Witches Road, she's being sued for all of these issues with her products because they're not very great and they're actually not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you can get this like sense that she isn't really great. You know that she's bound somehow, so maybe that's what affects like her magic or her potion making. And then when she hallucinates, you see that I didn't understand it until I kind of thought about it in a more nuanced way, considering like how old these women are supposed to be or portrayed as. And like her hallucination with the doctor and like him
I don't know. I
drowning
didn't
her.
understand that.
So if you think about it, if she's really that old and she's doing these like potions to give to people like she is in modern day, what if like she was helping like the underprivileged back in the day when like people of color didn't really have access to like medical care or anything like that? So she was like helping those that were underprivileged, and she's working with this white doctor. Patients aren't maybe like reacting the way, so he kills her for it or tries to kill her.
I can't wait to find out. Yeah. I like that idea too, because, or like, you know, she's actually healing the things that he's supposed to be doing or something.
Oh yeah, outperforming, and maybe he binds her.
Yeah. So that's Jennifer's hallucination. Alice Wu Gulliver has a hallucination of her mom, who we learn died on the Witches Road, and there's some type of curse that's following them. And Agatha's hallucination is what we learned to be true, that she sold her son Nick Scratch to whomever for her to get the Darkhold, which is the Book of the Damned that corrupts her. And there's some theories that that's what the callback in WandaVision, that when they show her being confronted by her sister witches, by her coven, that's why they decide to turn against her, because she has sold her child. She's done like the darkest thing possible to access the darkest magic possible. And so there were a couple of things that I noticed that we skipped over, because before they get to the hallucinations, all that stuff, there's a moment where Jennifer Kale goes up to Teen and says like, be careful with Agatha. And he's like weirdly defensive of her. And that's when we learn that she sold her son, Nick Scratch, for the Book of the Damned.
Wait, her son's Nick Scratch?
Her son is Nick Scratch, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that detail. Okay, fair.
Yeah, Agatha's son is Nick Scratch, which is also a nickname for the devil. But
right, and that's where like isn't it like the cat's name too?
The rabbit's name.
Or the rabbit. Okay,
Scratchy, Senor Scratchy. So yeah, they start going through these hallucinations, and what we learned from Jennifer Kale is that after all of these horrible things happen, the end result is death. And once they drank the wine, there was a 30-minute timer that started, and that was the understood countdown clock. So after they all get through their hallucinations and they all bring their different ingredients, while Jennifer is brewing it in a sink, and it starts turning all these colors, and they're talking about all the colors that they can't tell the difference between like what is chartreuse and what's cerulean. And
I also struggle. Actually, I know cerulean just because of Pokemon.
Correct.
But
Cerulean
other than
City.
I thought you were about to say Devil Wears Prada.
No, also
a
Ryan
whole monologue about cerulean.
So the final ingredient is that they have to put in a piece of their hair of those that have been affected. And there's this moment where, because Agatha drank her wine late, because she tried to skip it, and very Jumanji, like when the kid cheats in Jumanji and he gets a tail. But she tries to cheat the road, and there's this, really kind of telling moment where apparently there's some theories that she never walked the road the first time, but basically, she tries to cheat, she buys in, and so they get this potion going, and they can't figure out how to finalize it. And Agatha has this talk with Jennifer Kale about, she like kind of reminds her, like, you're a bad bitch. Like, they took your powers, but you're still a witch. You can do this. And that's when she realizes she needs the blood of an unpoisoned person, which is Teen, because Teen is underage and they didn't let him drink the wine. Quick thought, when they're confronting Agatha about not drinking, Teen steps up and he says, I'll do it, and she like slaps his hand and she says no. Like, she's very defensive of him, which does kind of lend, it does kind of lend some credence to him possibly being her son. Question mark.
I mean, there is a lot of red herrings that they put in to like try, and because I mean the whole reason they call him Teen, I think, also is because even before it was revealed that he was going to be playing a character called Teen, the internet went wild and they're like, oh, this is Billy for sure. And so then it's just like, I think to piss off, people even more, to like not give the exact answer. So like putting a bunch of red herrings of like, no, this could potentially be Nicholas Scratch, or is it? There's so many, like him being disappointed finding out that she actually did sell her son for the book, or thinking he's like, no, it's not true. Her starting to show this like maternal instinct towards him to protect him, even like before they all find out that he has a sigil on him. She like prevents him from introducing himself so they don't see the sigil, and like still kind of keeps him under her wing and like very mama bear protective until she can figure it out and either realize, because I think she also, it's trying to make it seem like she thinks that this could be Nicholas Scratch. Potentially. I don't think her mind is immediately on like Wanda's kids.
Yeah. There was also a moment when Jennifer was telling Teen about Agatha, and she says she wouldn't recognize her own son if he showed up at her doorstep.
Right.
Which was all very that is like that makes me think back to WandaVision, when Ralph Boner shows up at
as
Wanda's
Pietro.
doorstep. Yeah,
Not
as Pietro. Yeah.
That's right.
So, the other note, when Alice Wu Gulliver is talking about where she got her protection spell tattoo, she says, I got it when I was like 13. And his response was, a lot happened to me at 13 too.
There's more in that scene right there that you just said. So when he asks her where she got it from, she says that she got it in the what?
For her first response is nowhere. And both Shauna and I were like, what a not at all suspicious thing to say.
Right, like specific place of like, oh, this isn't. I got it in Red Rocks, California, or Colorado, when she was traveling with like her mom. Which in the comic book lore of Nicholas Scratch, he is actually like the person who creates New Salem, where the Salem 7 actually originate from, who are all Agatha's like great grandchildren or her grandchildren, derived from Nicholas Scratch, who like sicks them on Agatha as like revenge, and they are located like in the Rocky Mountains, which is like, it's very interesting, these little tiny details that they're putting in, because then it's like makes you question, like, is Alice a part of the Salem 7, or is her mom a part of the Salem 7? Maybe if she died on the road, maybe disappeared on the road, and maybe she was plucked up by a demon, perhaps Nicholas Scratch or Mephisto. Like, it's just like there's so many like different things that they're adding in to try and like pivot to Nicholas Scratch there somehow.
Well, because I think it's a very common, like, oh, I lost my child in this demonic way. Oh, they're not actually dead. They're just now evil. I think is the more likely, like, I think we do see Nicholas Scratch at some point, but I don't think it's going to be the teen. I think he's just going to show up eventually.
And that's going to be a huge mindfuck for Agnes, probably, is like seeing her own son more than likely being taken out by like her arch nemesis son, because I mean, it's evidently all her fault because she gave him up essentially.
Right. I don't know if you low-key told on your said who it is, but you just said something about her son being taken. Okay, got it.
No, that's not a plot detail at all. I'm just saying, like, that's just like that's what it seems like they're trying to like build up on.
Yeah. So the I guess kind of trying to wrap up episode 3 and thoughts or particular moments. They all drink the potion. They're getting down to the very last second, and they realize they have to give it to Mrs. Hart. And so they run over and pour the antidote into her mouth, and the timer goes off, and they're all still alive, and they're like, "Oh, we did it!" Except we learn that Mrs. Hart has died.
They were late.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Sharon. Not fair. And I just looked at IMDb. She's only listed for 3 episodes. She's not coming back.
You know what? That's it's stakes. It's easy stakes, and it gets an older actress in Deborah Jo Rupp. Like they're like, okay, we're good here. You did your part.
Yeah.
It was,
And
and the comedic, having that comedic aspect to those first 3 episodes, I think, and having someone now things are really starting to get serious. They realize that they can't fuck around in the same way.
Yes. So Uxie mentioned the Salem 7, who we were also introduced to at the end of episode 2. They are pursuing Agatha. We don't really know why. We know that Agatha has done some bad shit in her life. Rio Vidal calls her a witch killer. Jennifer Kale refers to Teen. She says, "Who is this? Another child sacrifice?" So like everyone knows that Agatha has fucked up. And so there's also a really interesting dynamic there. Any other thoughts from episode 3 before I get to the questions from the internet that we got? We don't know anything about episode 4 yet, but any general theories on what's to come?
Well, we get Aubrey in this next
She comes
episode.
back.
So it's a trade-off. Mrs. Davis has to, die in order for Rio to come into the story somehow.
I didn't realize that. I totally didn't know. I didn't pay enough attention in the previews, so I'm excited that we're getting more Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, she'll
So
be back.
good for
like in
us.
the preview, it seems like she appears, and they all looked the way that they looked at the end of this episode, just like very disheveled, very much like we just picked ourselves up off the ground, and then out of nowhere comes Rio, and it's like, I wonder how she got in there.
Yeah.
I think it's the
she's in
70s episode that we get this next one, so this will be an Alice Wu focused episode with her trial, because you kind of get a hint of that when she hallucinates with her
Is she
mom.
fire?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's Blood Witch too.
Okay.
The protection Blood Witch or something like that.
Yeah, she's the tank.
Blood.
So, and also there's something about the humors and the archetypes that Sean and I have been talking about over and over again about how they show up in different properties. But so one of the questions that we got was, how do you think Rio will pop back up, which we just talked about. The whole Black Heart bit seemed a bit more obvious, but seems like it might be Teen that is him. That is the Black Heart. Speculations about the identity of Teen. I think we've kind of shared those, that maybe it's Nick Scratch.
I never thought about
maybe
him being Blackheart.
Yeah. I mean, Marvel loves a good bait and switch.
Yeah.
So exactly, it could be her Agatha's heart. It could be Agatha's Black Heart that she drew, not Rio Vidal's Black Heart. Like her child is her heart, and she gave him up. So it could be he's a combination of both. Some theories are that Nick Scratch is riding along with Billy Kaplan, who is believed to be the Teen. I don't think we've said his name. Billy Kaplan is Wanda's
once early, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of my favorite questions is, if you could have a witch from any other property join Agatha's universe, who would it be? Who would you like to see join Agatha's coven?
Prue. Halliwell.
Oh! Justice for Prue.
Justice.
Yes.
R.I.P. Shannon Doherty.
R.I.P. Shannon Doherty, sis. We miss you.
Astrologue.
Who's that?
She is the child that John Constantine sends to hell, and ultimately then comes into her own as a witch and as a powerful magical user.
Very cool.
And she is amazing, and yeah, would fit in very well.
Willow Rosenberg, I think, I would love to see Willow kicking it with the girls, just to add to the gay representation. We need a nice, calm, scary, terrifying, powerful witch. So,
And someone who's actually gay on screen.
yes, hello, but not gay in real life. Whereas
Just saying.
Aubrey Plaza is bi in real life, so we are getting a little bit of both. Uxie, your significant other asked, "Who do you think Teen and Blackheart really are?" Which was obviously just to troll me. And
Yeah, 'cause I
where's
told them.
Mephisto? He wants to know where's Mephisto. We don't know. But Ray asked about if Agatha might be onto Teen being her son, like why she's so protective of him. So do you think she has a sense yet? Do you think she knows who he is, I guess, is my question.
I think that she thinks that she knows who he is. Because
Right.
like they're putting a lot of symbolism on him in this show, with like showing his bedroom when she's like still hallucinating, showing his like bedrooms and like whatever achievement or whatever. So like there's clearly a love there. You see how like her, like the acting that she does portraying herself like thinking her baby's in the crib and then like being super upset about it, to
She
then
goes
turning
off.
around and just being like, whoa, they can't see me like this. So like I think that she genuinely thinks that it might be him, but because she is so guarded and her wall is up, she's still kind of coming in it from like an approach that's like, let me be careful before I fuck myself over.
Yeah, and so the same person pointed out that when when they find out that Sparky died in WandaVision, and the kids are like, bring him back, and Agatha says, you can do that, that it seemed a little too aware.
Like
Yeah.
maybe, that's, I think, a theory that I have, thinking that she's going to get the choice between her power and her son, and she chooses her son.
Oh, that would surprise me. I think that would be a huge departure
But
from.
or maybe
No,
that it's
they
just that
need
the choice that
a
she's gonna get this.
And they need to
Yeah,
redeem her somehow, because they introduced her to us in the MCU as a villain when she's
right,
not known as a villain notoriously in the comic book. So they have to give her a redeeming quality of sorts, because she knows there
true,
is no more Darkhold. So
right.
She still
she
gets her
is
magic
aware.
anyways.
Yeah,
Of
so
course,
she is aware that she's not going to get a book again at the end, or that if she gets power, it's not going to be the same type of power again. She still has her ability to like sap magic from other. I mean, we saw that at the beginning from them trying to open the road. So she still has
Yeah,
that gift. So she can get power at any time. So she's clearly after something completely different in this iteration of her going through the road.
yeah, and that made me think. So, just do you all have any other overarching theories? And for me, I will say that one of my original theories that now I'm, of course, left with questions is that Teen is Billy, and Billy's wish when he gets to the end of the road is resurrecting Wanda, and that's how we get that back. And but now I'm feeling less certain about it.
I don't
Do you all
dislike
have
it.
theories? Yeah.
No, I think that I like that they're going to all grapple with getting their lost, love back.
Mm-hmm. Luke Small.
I mean, I think this is a
From the
great
spoilers you've
second
read.
part to what?
I said from the spoilers you've read.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just a picture of a freaking Funko Pop that I saw, and it's like, okay, well now I know who these people are. So like my theory crafting has just gone off the wall. But
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I'm not going to say anything in terms. I'm just excited for this being a good middle ground, because we know that Vision Quest is coming, and it's already been
Mm-hmm.
like known that this is a 3-part story
I
in
feel
three
like they
different.
didn't start saying that until recently, though.
Yeah,
But
because this is news to me.
because again, Marvel reassessed themselves, they checked themselves, and they said, okay, do what works. And that's what Bob Iger said too. Focus on what works. WandaVision worked. Their storytelling worked. So for them seeing these popular characters in the show, knowing they could be successful off of it, people asking these questions like, where's Vision? Where's Vision? Bring Vision back. Everyone's petitioning for like the Young Avengers and all that shit. So this is a great like plot point to seeing of like, okay, if Agatha All Along really does so well by the end of this, like it's a fucking hole in one for Vision Quest for them to complete this story of this family of Wanda and Vision and their children, which is already so incredibly nuanced in the comic books. But they have like their own way of telling it through the MCU in a completely different lens. So like I'm just very hopeful that it ends in a way that they can continue on furthermore with bringing Tommy back and bringing Vision back or some iteration or form. And then at the end of it all, we get Mother Goddess Wanda back.
Right. Okay. I do have some follow-up questions for you, but I'm not going to ask them. Your Halloween costumes? What's that note in there?
Oh, I was thinking because the comment that we had made at the time was the like dressing as like the different witches of the coven for Halloween, and I would be like,
I'm definitely Agatha because I already tried to be Agatha and I need a redemption.
get that
R.I.P. my terrible fucking 2022, 2021 Halloween costume. I tried. I really thought I had it. I think that was 21. Doesn't matter.
You tried.
Yeah, and Uxie, who did we say you would be?
Not Patty LuPone, because apparently James ended up being Patty.
James is Patty LuPone, absolutely.
I'd probably be.
I like how the answer was not Patty LuPone.
Not Patty LuPone.
You'd be.
I'd probably be like Teen or Alice Wu. I mean, those are the only two. I don't think I'm Jennifer Kale.
You don't think so? You're a skincare girly, though.
Not lately.
Yeah, well,
I don't have that like. I don't know. She has like this way about her that's very much like when I know my shit, I know my shit, and I'm not gonna like. And I am never that way. So that's why I'm very laissez blah, like Alice Wu is. Laissez blah.
And plus, you're definitely the tank. And then of course we assigned Shauna as Mrs. Hart solely because in the Ballad of the Witches Road, when they're all going down, down, and it's like in a round, Mrs. Hart is holding onto their hands and just jumping up and down, having no idea what's going on. And if that's not Shauna in a nutshell, I don't know.
Are we supposed to know this song?
She's just happy to be here.
She's happy to be invited.
It's the booty shorts, but also getting to dress as Aubrey Plaza though, like with that like detective outfit. As I'm saying, is like both are maybe that's like maybe I get a costume change and I go from one to the other midway through.
Oh yeah, we see the variations of them.
They get different costume changes through the trials.
Yeah, I think that's really the answer. And so starting out with like a little like booty shorts and like a floral like crappy, like really like slut out fucking Mrs. Hart.
Yeah. So speaking of, what a great way to come to our final point of the episode. Who is the hottest character on Agatha All Along?
I mean, Aubrey Plaza with that question.
Okay.
But then again, did Aubrey Plaza get a whole scene that was just her walking and showing off her outfit?
Yes.
Also, when we rewatched that, the moment that both me and Ryan, like, we looked at each other and were like, did you know that was just for the...
Literally filmed just for the outfit reveal, which like
like we were just so at the ready to be like, I bet everyone else
I hope everyone else doesn't know this so I can share it, but instead actually just Sean and I, everyone knows it, and Sean and I have to share it.
But we got to, it was great. But we got to share that instead. Isn't that more important?
That's true. So who do you think is the hottest, Shauna?
It's Aubrey Plaza.
It's Aubrey Plaza.
It's Aubrey Plaza. It's just like, again, sometimes just like with, sometimes the obvious answer is obvious, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Which is still going to be my guess. Aubrey Plaza's the hottest, and it's probably Wanda's kid.
There it is. Thanks for joining us on this
Spoilers
episode.
off.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Real Hot Nerd Shit. Check us out on Instagram at Real Hot Nerd Pod. We'll link our Instagrams in the bios if we feel like it. Shauna, anything exciting or cool that you want to say or share?
No, I'm feeling great. Yeah, just come
Excited?
follow us, check us out. We have a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you enjoy listening to it even half as much as we have doing it.
Very much so. Thanks, Uxie, for joining us. We will catch you all next time.
Adios.